Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Jared Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Able Seaman Jared Brown. This evening, we're honoured to acknowledge Mr. Paul Johnson, Minister for Defence, Sweden, and Rear Admiral David Mann, Royal Australian Navy Head Joint Capabilities, and the accompanying delegation. We also warmly welcome the representatives from the Royal Australian Navy's Sailor of the Year program 2024. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the Yarrow and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of the Prince of Peace Lutheran College, Henderson Road campus, visiting from Etherton Hills in Queensland. If able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Jack Yarrow. Jack Yarrow was born in 1897 in Eaglehawk, Victoria. He was the only son born to William James Yarrow, a shearer, and his wife Annie. Jack attended the local Catholic school, where he was an active member of the cadets. After he left school, he continued serving in the militia before going to work for the Lego Chemicals Company in California Gully. When the First World War broke out in 1914, Jack was working as a burner, a gold mining process. Jack Yarrow enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 13th of July 1915. He was assigned to the reinforcement of the 21st Infantry Battalion and began training. On the 29th of December, Private Yarrow embarked for active service on the troopship Demothians. Yarrow arrived in Egypt, where he worked and joined a mixture of recruits and veterans from the Gallipoli campaign. In late February 1916, during an expansion of the AIF, Yarrow was transferred to the newly formed 60th Battalion. He continued training until March, when he was sent to hospital with influenza. This illness would be the first in a long line of alignments that plagued Jack Yarrow. He rejoined his unit in mid-March, and they embarked for service on the Western Front 3 months later, from the French port of Marseille. They were sent north to the border of France and Belgium, which had once been the site of bitter fighting. Now quiet, this area became known as the nursery sector, where new troops were introduced to the life in the trenches. Yarrow was soon drawn into his first major battle when his unit attacked enemy positions near the village of Fromelles on the 19th of July. Yarrow survived the assault, but it resulted in more than 5,500 Australian casualties. The 60th Battalion itself was virtually wiped out, with 757 casualties. As a result of the staggering losses, Yarrow and his remaining comrades saw little offensive action for the rest of the year. At the end of 1916, Yarrow was in and out of hospital with a range of health problems. Yarrow's unit saw out the bitterly cold winter at the front. In early 1917, he and his comrades were drawn into the advance, which followed the German withdrawal to the Hindenburg Line. They participated in a few major clashes with the enemy, but did help to defend gains made during the Second Battle of Bullecourt. Following this stint in the trenches, Yarrow was granted leave in England. He returned to the front in early June and was sent to an infantry school to train as a batman. 2 months later, Yarrow returned to his unit behind the lines before making their way to the trenches of Belgium in mid-September. Yarrow and his comrades were soon in the front lines, preparing for attack of the Polygon Wood. By the eve of the battle, the men of the 60th Battalion were called forward to support the front line and dug in the outskirts of Glencorse Wood. As they waited for nightfall, the enemy began shelling their position quickly, causing casualties before the main attack had even begun. A piece of the shell struck Yarrow, and his comrades immediately went to his aid, but the hit had proved fatal. He was already dead. One of his comrades wrote to Yarrow's mother, "We were moving up to the front line when a German shell burst nearby and killed poor Jack instantly. Jack was acting as company runner at the time of his death, which is a most trustworthy position and was very nobly carried out by him. I had the highest regard for his good qualities, and I feel the loss of such a true and noble pal very keenly. It may comfort you to know that dear Jack did not suffer any pain and fell doing his duty bravely. I trust that God will give you the strength to bear and under your great sorrow." Yarrow's final resting place was never located. Today he is commemorated along the missing on the Menham Gate Memorial at Ypres in Belgium. Private Jack Yarrow was 21 years old. His name is listed on the honour roll on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Jack Yarrow, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.